So I said, well, actually, I was raised Orthodox as well. She said, so the wife said, well, what made you switch? So I said, well, it was the biblical prophecies about Israel and then about the Messiah, who the Messiah would be. And I really was greatly offended. But when I read all of these, there are 300 prophecies or so, many of which have been fulfilled, I was trapped. And whether I liked it or not, I had to admit that this carpenter from Galilee was the Messiah. You see, I was off and running in a discussion starting with the bumper sticker. So they're out there, and you might consider putting one on your vehicle and putting one in your trunk, just in case somebody says something. Hallelujah. So there are many ways that we are out there in the community. And, we have many ministries in the congregation. And they kind of spring up, and sometimes it's an individual or several individuals welded together in a common goal, effort, and friendship. And it's kind of nice to have a congregation which is kind of like an umbrella over all of these. And each one has its own deal and goes forward, and it's kind of nice. I got a call from Alyssa. Alyssa, raise your hand. Oh, there she is. See, you can see the hand. You can't see Alyssa. Now she called, and we've been discussing. She just has a real compelling to witness to Jewish people, but how do you suggest that I have to do something? So I mentioned two possibilities for her to consider, and she's considering them. One, I said, well, if I were you and I felt so compelled, I would go out with a clipboard on a college campus taking a survey about Jewish people or Israel and ask questions, because everybody wants their opinion to be expressed. I said, and that's something you could do by yourself, and I know somebody who does that, and quite successfully so, to get into a conversation about the Messiah. I said the other one is one that we did in San Diego on the college campus. It still continues to this day, all these decades later. It's in a park. They put up a table with a sign on the front that says Messianic Judaism or just the Star of David, and on the table they have our books and that are given out free, and pamphlets and so on. And you just sit there and wait, and it's amazing who will come by with questions. And you can take your survey. So there is somebody, Alyssa, this, but if there was somebody who wanted to join her in it, that might inspire her or motivate her further. But if not, maybe one of you might want to do that as a way of expressing your desire to tell people about the Lord. On the table, of course, have a map of how to get to the congregation. Okay. Want to call the children forward for one of our ministries. We have the nursery, we have the children, we have the young people's program. I'm going to ask for Fernando and Stanley to come forward. Come on up. And spread the chuppah. All right. What is it? I'm going to pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you that you can be in more than one place at one time. You can be in the children's class, and you can be in this sanctuary as well. Your Spirit can be everywhere at once. It's an amazing thing. And that was possible because of the crucifixion, that your Spirit was set free to be among all peoples at all times in all locations. Be in the class today. Have your word become alive and real. And we'll thank you for the teacher and the students in Yeshua's name. Amen. Different congregations have different emphases and different style and dwell on certain pet subjects in the Scriptures. And this being a Jewish-style congregation, we like to include both the Old Testament, the Tanakh, and the New Covenant. By the way, we say the word Tanakh, it's an abbreviation for T for Torah, okay, and a Nun for the Nevi'im, the prophets, okay, and the Ketuvim, the writings. So when you string that together, it's Tanakh, which means Old Testament, okay. And the New Covenant. Why do we say New Covenant instead of New Testament? Because New Testament, we've heard it all the time, but when we say New Covenant, it emphasizes the fact that there is a covenant, according to Jeremiah, that will be written on the fleshly tablets of our hearts. And there's an agreement, and there's an exchange, and we want to emphasize the covenant aspect of becoming a believer. So we choose to emphasize both the Old Testament and New. And there's been a problem over time, a great cover-up, that these two books were distinct and different, and one is acceptable and one is unacceptable. And we're here to overcome that mistake of actually thousands of years. So let's pray that the Lord will inhabit our praises as he's promised to do and as he has done, and that he will give this message this morning. Please join me. Spirit of holiness, you are the breath of God. You are the Ruach HaKodesh. Holy Spirit, it was you that inspired men of old to write down your words and to preserve them and organize them, even in chapters and verses, and to preserve them despite all odds, so that we, as we come down to the climax of history, would be able to see and review and get perspective on what you're doing. Speak to us this morning from the Word which you created. Speak to us to the Spirit, your Spirit, which resides in our hearts and which grows in importance with every day. Well, thank you for this, that you'll do it in Yeshua's name. Amen. So, I'd like to start off with personal experience because I just like doing it. When I was becoming a believer, I was in a new environment as a new employee of the federal government, and I'm in the bureaucracy and a little lost. And someone had witnessed to me on a bus, and it created a good deal of confusion, and I was offended. So I didn't know many people in Washington, D.C. We had only recently moved there. So there was a work associate, and I told him how, he was not Jewish, but I told him how really offended I was that someone had witnessed to me that I was not going to take that bus anymore, etc. And I told it to him because he was a regular Gentile. I mean, he wasn't one of these guys who would put a trip on me, and I just want to let him know that I thought he was okay, whereas this other guy was for bludgeon, you know. So he says, oh, so someone talked to you about the Redeemer. The Redeemer. Oh, so you're a Jesus person too, the Redeemer. Okay, well, I'm not going to talk to you again about this. Well, I didn't say that to him, but I made it a point that this too was going to keep away from him. But the concept of a Redeemer struck me as being very much of a Goyisha, very much a Gentile, very much of a Jesus thing, that there's a Redeemer. I mean, I just knew who he was talking about when he said about the Redeemer. I mean, who else could he be talking about, right? Feh, I don't want any part of that. That's for the Goyim. That's for the Gentiles. I'm a Jewish boy. Can't you see that? I don't need to hear about the Redeemer. Now, later, I came to understand more and was willing to look at this concept among others And lo and behold, I was surprised that the concept of a Redeemer is very much an Old Testament concept. That indeed the concept of a Redeemer is very much a Jewish thing. That it is mentioned, I found 13 occasions in the Old Testament that passages that refer to a Redeemer. Here I went to an Orthodox synagogue 6 days a week, and I never heard about the Redeemer, though it's in the Bible 13 times, the Old Testament. Why not? Why not? 13 times. So I thought, well, it is common for people to think of that, as I did, as being strictly a New Testament thing. So we're going to pick up on a few of these, not all of these, but I want us to recognize that the whole concept of a Redeemer and redemption, boy, now that's a heavy word. I mean, I never linked the two things together, a Redeemer and redemption. Redemption was like a separate religious word, also probably with the Gentiles and so on. But I guess redeemed and redemption, one's a noun. They seem like related words, and they are related words. But let's go here and let's look at a few of these Old Testament passages to firmly establish this is Old Testament. The whole concept of a Redeemer starts with the Jewish people in the Old Testament. Job 19:25. Job says, Job is the oldest book thought to be the oldest book in the Bible, approximately almost 2,000 years BCE. It says, "For I know that my Redeemer liveth, and that he shall stand in the latter day upon the earth." So here it is, 4,000 years ago, my Redeemer lives, and that will stand upon the earth in the latter days. That's now. Huh? Now that's a 4,000-year-old promise to Job. Mm-hmm. Old Testament. Old Job he's Old Testament. Let's turn to the next one that I picked out. I love some of these things to make this point. In Isaiah had a lot to say about a Redeemer. Isaiah 41:14 says, "Fear not, thou worm Jacob, and ye men of Israel, will help thee, saith the Lord, and thy Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel." So here again, Isaiah is speaking about a Redeemer. Who's the Redeemer? The Holy One of Israel. I wonder, who could the Holy One of Israel be referring to? Well, who's the holiest Jew that ever lived? Albert Einstein? Huh? I mean, which one would you consider to be the holiest Jew that ever lived? Maimonides? Who? It's pretty obvious. You can ask billions of people who was the holiest Jew that ever lived, and it would be Yeshua, Jesus, the holy Jew. That's him, the Redeemer. Who's the Redeemer? The Holy One of Israel. Turn the page. Isaiah also says in 43:14, "Thus saith the Lord, your Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel." Again, same deal. There's a Redeemer. Who is he? The Holy One of Israel. Old Testament. Yep. Turn the page again. Isaiah 44:24. Isaiah 44:24. "Thus saith the Lord, thy Redeemer, and he has formed thee from the womb. I am the Lord that maketh all things, that stretch forth the heavens alone, that I spreadeth abroad the earth by myself." Who is that? Well, that's the Lord, thy Redeemer, your Redeemer. Your Redeemer is the Lord, and he's the one that stretched forth the heavens and all the earth. He makes all things, stretches forth the heaven, and so on. But who is the Lord? Why, he's the Redeemer. Okay, so Isaiah is still talking about a Redeemer. We're going to find out more about this Redeemer because it's Old Testament stuff. Let's find out why. How did this concept ever get into the Old Testament? Isaiah 47:4 says, "For our Redeemer, the Lord of hosts, is his name, the Holy One of Israel." So this concept of the Redeemer and the Holy One of Israel, the Holy Jew, is the Redeemer, is again mentioned by Isaiah. The last Isaiah reference to this that I'm going to mention is Isaiah 59:20. Isaiah 59:20 says, "And the Redeemer shall come to Zion, and unto them shall turn from transgressions in Jacob, saith the Lord." Who's going to get Jacob to turn from his transgressions? Who is coming to Zion and is going to turn the transgressions of Jacob? Who is that going to be? It says it's going to be the Redeemer is going to be the one who's going to turn Jacob into Israel. It's the Redeemer who's going to do the job. Who can this Redeemer be? Well, he's the Holy One of Israel. We know he's coming, and it will be he will be the one that'll turn the hearts of the Jewish people, and that's Jacob. Okay. Well, Isaiah, there are Proverbs speaks of the Redeemer, and Psalms speaks of the Redeemer. There are other places also in the Tanakh. I've just picked out these. So the concept of a Redeemer is firmly fixed in the Old Testament, the Tanakh. So all of the concepts of the New Covenant all have their seeds in the Old Testament, but they were not understandable. They needed commentary. They needed explanation. They needed amplification and explanation and unpacking. And that's what the New Covenant is all about. Okay? And you'll find that a good third of the New Covenant are quotations from the Old Testament. So this idea that the Old and New Testaments are two very different and separate things is that idea is, as we say, it's worth garnished. Okay. And Colossians, it means it's for nothing. Colossians 1 talks about the Redeemer to explain it. So let's turn to the book of Colossians and the first chapter, and we begin to understand a little more about what is this Redeemer thing. I mean, all right, God says there's going to be a Redeemer, and what does it mean? Well, we know something that's going to be through the Holy One of Israel, but what else can we learn from this? We begin on verse 14 that explains about the Redeemer. In whom we have redemption, heavy word, through his blood, even the forgiveness of sins. Redemption has to do with blood. Who is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of every creature. For by him were all things created that are in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created by him. And he is before all things, and by him all things consist. He is the head of the body of the congregation, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, and all things he might have preeminence. For it pleased the Father, in him should all fullness dwell, and having made peace through the blood of his cross, by him to reconcile all things unto him. By him I say, whether they be things of earth or in heaven. So, we don't think of the word redeeming. Usually in our modern society, we only think of the word to redeem something as when you go to the hock shop. When you go to the pawn shop, okay, and you say, well, I'm taking this thing of value, and you give me a little bit of money. Usually I get shortchanged, but at least I get something. And now I can't get my valuable back unless I pay the price. That's it. So apparently, this redeeming or redemption comes by paying a price. Okay. But it seems as though the Jewish people, the canary in the coal mine, and people at large, okay, we need a redeemer. Why do we need a redeemer? Well, those of us who are Bible believers recognize that we sold our birthright in the Garden of Eden. We gave it away on the cheap for a promise of ambition. For the promise of ambition, I can become a god. I can be a somebody. I can go and be more than what I am. I have everything. I'm a beautiful creature. All's provided for me, but I want more. And so we fell for it. We got sold a bill of goods. Didn't really work out for us. Okay? And now what? Now we've been seduced. We've been actually cheated. We were promised something and it didn't work out, but we gave away our birthright on the cheap. And now how do we get it back? Well, you don't got the price. What's the price? Oh, well, you can't pay it. Why? Because you're in hock. Why are you in hock? Because you sinned. There it is. And so you don't have the wherewithal. I mean, if I were to take my watch and I were to put it in hock, the watch can't get itself out of hock. Something's going to have to get us out of hock. Now, what would that be? That would require that a price is paid. But the price has to be paid in a currency which is acceptable in heaven. And in heaven, there is nothing that is impure that is allowed in, because a little leaven spoileth the whole lump. So if there's a slight bit of impurity in heaven, it would spread like a cancer, so to speak, and infect other things in heaven. So it must be pure. So that payment must be a pure payment and in kind of what was of offsetting. So what is it? Well, Leviticus 17:11, as you've heard me say many times before, the life of the flesh is in the blood. I provided it as an atonement for your souls. So the price would have to be paid by pure blood, and you've heard that spoken of before. So you say, well, all right, for those of us who are believers, we can plainly see that we have been redeemed. Somehow or other, that was overcome for us. We don't know exactly how, but great, it happened. I'm out of hock. I'm free. I'm no longer in prison. I've been set loose. My situation has been overcome. I'm no longer in the helpless position of being in hock and being unable to pay. Somehow it happened, and now I'm let loose. And can it be that all I have to do is agree that he paid the price for me? It's too simple. It can't be that easy. Why, any fool can see that that's just too easy. Well, that's just it. Any fool would say it's that easy. It's too easy. But the reality is the Bible's a simple book. It's a simple transaction made simple for us simple people, okay, that this is how it's done. I can't believe that, and I don't want to believe that. Why don't I want to believe that it's that simple? Why don't I want to believe that there's a Redeemer? Why does that concept that I have to be redeemed, why is that so unacceptable to people? Well, it demeans me. I don't need to be redeemed. I'm a good person. I make my contribution on Yom Kippur. I make my contribution on Sunday. I take and I put my check in there. My, what a good boy am I. Why, surely a just God would see that my check overcomes everything that I've ever done, all of the unsoiled thoughts, all of my misdeeds, because I wrote out a check. It just does. It's hardly what you would call purity. Now, it's good, okay, but it ain't going to get anything out of hock all by itself. Okay, maybe an expression of the heart, and so on. So the human fallen condition finds this idea demeaning that I should need redeeming, because actually I am a special person. Why, do you realize I can become as a God? Do you realize, since I'm going to live I'm going to go on, and I deny the idea that I'm going to die, I can become more important and more powerful, etc. And I'm a good person, in my opinion. But from God's point of view, hey, buddy, you fell, you're in hock, and you sold out cheap, and now you belong to the guy that you sold yourself to. You sold yourself to the snake, and now you're stuck with it. Or so it would seem. I know how to get you out. Read my book, and you can get out of hock. How do I get out of hock? Well, I have to believe in the blood sacrifice. I don't want to believe that, because if I believe that, why then I'm going to lose. If I'm redeemed, that means I belong to somebody else. The ownership goes. I like being an independent person. I'm fiercely independent. I like my independence. And you're saying that I would be, if I'm redeemed, that means I'm owned by the Redeemer. Yeah, you're owned by the Redeemer. Why, it goes against my whole grain, the idea that I would be owned. I'm not owned. I'm not a slave. That went out with the Emancipation Proclamation. I'm not owned. I don't want to be owned. I want to own myself. The idea that I would be owned by somebody who made me is totally objectionable. Why? I want to be my fiercely independent self for now and forever, that I will never be owned. I will be independent. I am going to assert myself in others as somebody who doesn't need anybody to own me. Why, I am totally self-sufficient. I am totally independent, and I just don't need anybody, let alone somebody who will own me. It degrades me to be owned by somebody. Wow. Stupid, stupid, stupid. Can you imagine that if we're not, I like being owned. I never used to like the idea of being owned, but I like the idea of being owned now, because somebody else is taking responsibility for me. Oh, I belong to him. He's in charge. Ask his opinion. Ask his permission. I'm just owned. I'm just property. Oh, our Western society, why, in our democracy, being somebody else's property, why, that is unacceptable. Yeah, I like the idea. I increasingly like the idea of being owned by somebody else if he is of pure motive, if he is of a righteous spirit, if he is the Holy One of Israel who will only act in holy ways toward me. Go ahead and own me. That means you're just going to look after me, and I don't have to be anxious about anything because you're going to help me perform in every way, and I don't have to feel insecure. The rug's not going to be pulled out from under me because that's your problem. You're my owner. I don't gotta. You gotta. And I'm depending on you gotta because you can do it. And me, all I got to do is be owned. I'm in a pretty nice situation. Why, all I got to be is be the property. All I got to do is be owned. And all the rest of it is up to him. Wow, what a relief. What a relief. It's not dependent upon me. I don't have to succeed. He has to succeed in my project. He's the one who put me into it. That's his problem. That's his problem that I succeed. And he has the power and he has the authority. And since it was his idea, he'll bring it off. All I got to do is just be owned. All I got to do is be redeemed. All I got to do is be his property. Well, under those circumstances, I guess I don't mind so much being somebody else's property. No, not me, not me. Why, I want to not be owned by anybody. You realize I'm an American? Well, I regret to inform that you're already owned by somebody. Huh? Yeah, when you sold out your birthright, you became owned by the snake. You submitted yourself to the snake. I'll give my soul to you. I'll give my volition to you. I will defer to you. I will take a back seat to you because you're giving me the promise that I can become as a God. So you sold. And once you sold yourself, you are now owned by the snake. And the snake, he doesn't want you to know, but he's controlling. He's controlling, and he works on the mind. He works on the mind to be sure that you don't get the idea that there's a way out. So it's very important to him that you better not get the idea that you can get out of this fix. So I'm going to keep you under my thumb. And I'm even going to disguise the fact that you're owned by me. I got you in the Garden of Eden, and I got your relatives and your descendancy and your progeny. And you're all owned by me. And I'm not letting you out from under so easy. Yeah. Matter of fact, I'm not letting you out at all. Ever. Of course, if someone takes you out, well, I guess that would be over my objections. It turns out that there was somebody who would take us out from under the thumb of the adversary over the objections of the snake. And he would do so under the legal system that he had created. Okay, the sacrifice will have to be a pure sacrifice. And let me see, I'm the Messiah. I got pure blood. I meet all the specifications of the prophecies, etc., etc. And therefore, I'll make the sacrifice, okay? And the price will be paid to anybody who wants to be included. Now, you would think that straight away people who have some intelligence would be willing to say, yeah, include me in. Yeah, he owns me. He owns me. I'm with him. Where he goes, I go. What he gets, I get. I want to be with him. Well, what qualifies you to be with him in heavenly places? I'm property. I'm part of his baggage. I'm in. Isn't that enough? Huh? That's it. That's the whole deal. We're the redeemed property. We got, and so we have our redemption slip right here in this book. Okay? And it says in plain Hebrew that we have been redeemed. The price has been paid, a price acceptable to God. You see, the thing is, when we decide what the price is, we're trying to get to heaven on our terms. It's not ours to give out. It's God's. So we get in on his terms. And he has laid out what is acceptable to him, and then he went ahead and paid the price. So, because he didn't like the idea of being overruled by the snake. The snake has to be put down, and he is, increasingly. Let's turn to Titus 2:14 that also speaks about this. In Titus 2:14, who gave himself for us that he might redeem us from all iniquity and purify himself a peculiar people, zealous of good works. We are a peculiar people. Ask any of the folks on television, or most of the folks on television, and they'll tell you how peculiar we are. Why, these people don't act in their self-interest. They are self-sacrificing. They are willing to suffer a reproach. They are giving people, etc. It just seems like they are kind of double stupid. That's how the world thinks of us, as double stupid, to actually believe that there has been a redemption. Why do I believe there is a redemption? Well, it's a concept that's thousands of years old and preserved in the Scriptures by various sources, and God means for there to be a legal transaction, and the transaction has taken place. So we have visited the promise of redemption, the promise of redeeming, and the present situation that we're in. We like being owned. We like being redeemed. Now let's turn to Revelation for the future of the redeemed. Because the concept carries forward to Revelation 5 and verses 9 and 10, also speaks about us, the redeemed. And they sung a new song. Thou art worthy to take the book and open the seals thereof, for thou wast slain and hast redeemed us to God by thy blood. See, this redeeming, it keeps coming back to. You get redeemed by the blood. You get redeemed by the blood. It's the blood that gives you the redeeming. The blood will get you out of hock. It only talks about the blood as being the means of getting us out of hock. Nothing else is spoken of Okay? We can go and we can become good believers, fine believers. We can do a good job. But the ticket, the thing that gets us out is the blood of atonement. If you got the blood of atonement, you're going. You're being elevated. You will be resurrected. You are believers. Behold, all things have become new. Everything has become new to us. It's an evidence of things unseen. What makes us so willing to do the will of God? We're willing to do the things of God and actually perform on them, and the world can't see. Why would you do that? It doesn't make any sense. It's not in your self-interest. Why would you do that? I can't see it. There doesn't seem to be any reason why you should go out of your way against your self-interest. Huh? Well, the reason you can't see it is, but there's something there. There is something there as to why we do it, as to why we get up on Saturday mornings. Why do we get dressed? Why do we go out of our way? Why do we drive sometimes distances to get here? Why? Why do we perform all these different things? All the sacrificial duties that go into making this congregation and other congregations. All the different things that we do as believers. Why do we do them? The world can't see it because it can't be seen. But it's evidence. It's evidence. It's factual proof that there's something else going on beyond what we can see. We are the evidence of things unseen. We are the faith people. Why do we have faith? Because we believe in what the world considers to be nonsense, that we have been redeemed, that we are owners, that we are owned, and that we are property, and that we belong, and that belonging and the blood of atonement is giving us something whereby we have the promise of resurrection from somebody who always keeps his promises. And I want a better resurrection. Why, when I go to heaven, I want to have racked up a lot of points. I want there to be, when I'm in the cloud of witnesses, and everybody's asked me about this, and it's recorded, and all these different things. I don't want to just be there. I don't want to just get in so as by fire. Why, I want my life to be profitable. Profitable. And so when my resurrection comes, I'm going to the cloud of witnesses, and I'm taking with me treasure. All the things that I've done. All of the spectacle that I've made of myself. And you, what about your spectacle? Huh? Your spectacle. Do you realize that in the drama, we are seen by the cloud of witnesses, but we're also seen by all the people we come in contact with? Oh, she's one of those. Yeah, she's a spectacle. She's a spectacle. Why, she is a demonstration, a living demonstration of somebody who acts against her interests. She is somebody who is out there as a living demonstration of what it is to be owned property. So we are gamblers. We are gambling on the resurrection that it's true. We're gambling that we got the resurrection that's to come because of the redemption. We're gambling because we say, yeah, that blood of atonement, that was a sufficient price to be paid. Why was it a sufficient price to be paid? Like in poker, I'm all in. In poker, I'm an old poker player. In poker, there's a concept. One guy's got a lot of chips, and one guy's got very little. But the guy who's got very little, he's got such a good hand, he says, I'm all in. All my chips, whatever I got, I'm all in. Yeshua said, I'm all in. Whatever I got, it's committed. I'm confident it will pay off. I'm going all the way without reservation. There's no safety net under me. I'm going all the way. And so it is. That's what Yeshua did. And he says, I'm all in. I'm going for broke. I'm going for the whole package. Whatever I got, I'm giving. I only got this one body, but it's all together going to be given for this purpose. I only got one mind. I only got one future, but I'm giving the whole thing. I'm all in, he said. Whatever I got, I want to do for other people because there awaits for me joy in heaven for having done so. I will have a sense of accomplishment because through my act of crucifixion, My Holy Spirit has been loosed upon the earth for the enjoyment and benefit of all people, to spread of the increase of my Father's kingdom, of which there shall be no end of the increase. I want to bet all in. I know the prophecies. I am the Messiah. I'm betting everything that this will work, that my blood of atonement will solve the problem. I'm betting. I'm all in. And so it is that the Messiah said, in faith, he was a man, he had to exhibit faith as well. He's all in. And my friends, he said, follow me. I am the way. I am the ticket. And I am the life. I'm the life of resurrection. Now the deal is that we have this all-in concept of the Messiah, and we say he's the way, he's the ticket, he's the way through the labyrinth. I'm a joint heir with him. He's firstborn among brethren. Yeah, what he gets, I get. Therefore, I think if he thought that was the wise and smart thing to do, to be all in, I think I'm going all in too. I'm going all in. Whatever I got, whoever I am, whatever I can bet, I'm all in. My body, my soul, my mind is going to be as much yielded as I can, because I want to be all in. I may not have many chips in this life. I may not even have long to live, but I'm going to be all in. Whatever I got is going to be committed. I'm betting on this hand. I got a sure hand. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. One last thing. Why are we so confident that we're willing to go all in with whatever we've got? For all of you who understand at the game of poker, you'll realize there's Linda over there. She's a player. Maybe we can get together. Okay. So the highest hand you can have is a royal flush. A 10, jack, queen, king, ace. I see some bobbing heads over there, and I may have some future poker partners. And if it's in spades, it's the highest suit. So let me see. You have a 10, a jack, a queen, king, or ace of spades. There is no hand that can overcome that. If you have that particular hand, it is impossible to lose. You must win by definition. Them's the rules. Huh? Yeah, okay. Now, also in poker, there is something called the perfect low. Okay? Ace, deuce, 3, 4, and 6. The perfect low as you can get in clubs. Okay? Now we're getting a little more sophisticated here. But if you have that, any hand will beat you. Now, in the eternal poker game, as I sorted out, all right, those of us who are of the Lord, we're sitting there with the perfect royal flush. We cannot lose. And here's the devil. Why do I know that? Because it says it in Yeshua's book of Hoyle. We cannot lose. We cannot lose. We have the royal flush in spades. Nothing can overcome it. Nothing can overcome it. It's in the rule book that we cannot be overcome. And on the other hand, what does it say about about who's got the perfect low? The hand that any hand can beat. Why? It's the devil. The devil has the low hand. He cannot win. So what do we have? We're sitting there with ace high, royal flush, and spades, and there's some bluffer coming along, and with the ace 2, 3, 4, 6 in club, and he's got the lowest hand. And this bluffer is trying to bluff us out of our winning hand. Can't we see that we automatically win? How do I say? Because the book says so. The rule book says we must win. And the rule book says he must lose. But he's bluffing. And we need to call his bluff. So when the pressure builds, when all looks bad, we have to remind ourselves, whoa, I have the perfect winner. He has the perfect loser. I'm not fooled, you bluffer. You're just bluffing. I win. And if I see it through to the end of the hand, I will win, and so on. Hallelujah. So we have confidence. We have confidence that we have been redeemed. The price has been paid by the blood of atonement, who by the Holy One of Israel, who never sinned, who was pure in all his ways. And we have confidence this will bring us the resurrection. Yeah, I think it's good to be owned. I like being owned. Owned is good for me. Hallelujah. If I'm right, because I'm owned by the special Holy One of Israel. And he paid. He paid. Hallelujah. I'm glad I belong to him. Let's close in a word of prayer. How good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. We do thank you, Lord, that you do give us your word to explain things to us. By your Holy Spirit, you expand upon it, show us things that we can relate to, that we can depend upon it increasingly. Thank you for our injection of faith. We need it all the time. We need our faith underscored, as is our affirmation and acceptability to you. We just thank you for this time together in Yeshua's name. Amen. Jerry Cohen, come on forward. Lead us in Adon Olam, the traditional closing melody. And let's all stand.
All right. Join me in singing Adon Olam. Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Li'et Nasa B'chesochol Azai Melech Shemo Nekra V'yacharei Kiklot HaKol Levado Yimloch Nora V'hu Haya V'hu Hoveh V'hu yiyeh b'tifara, v'hu echad v'ein sheni, laham shilo lahakbira, b'li reshit, b'li tachlit, v'lo ha'oz v'ham misra, v'hu eli v'chai goali, v'tzurchev li b'yetzara, v'hu nisi oman no sleep, Minat kosi b'yom ekra b'yado avchid ruchi b'yet ishan v'ya'ira v'yim ruchi gaviyati Adonai li v'lo ira. Lord of the world, the King supreme, ere aught was formed, he reigned alone. When by his will all things were wrought, then was his sovereign name made known. And when this age shall cease to be, he still shall reign in majesty. He was, he is, and he will be, all glorious, eternally incomparable. The Lord is one. No other can his nature share, without beginning, without end. Unto him all strength and majesty. He is my living God who saves, my rock when grief or sorrows fall, my banner and my refuge strong, my cup of life whenever I call, and in his hand I place my soul. Asleep, awake, for he is near, and with my soul and body too. God is with me, there is no fear. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
and give him praise. נגילה ונשמחה וניתן לו כבוד. נגילה ונשמחה וניתן לו כבוד. הללויה, כי מלך אדוני אלוהינו. הללויה, כי מלך אלוהי צבאות. הללויה, כי מלך אדוני אלוהינו. הללויה, כי מלך אלוהי צבאות. נגילה ונשמחה וניתן לו כבוד. נגילה